Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
3, 2, 1.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is iteration 113 and recording on November the 2nd, 2014. My name is Ryan Kirkby, as always. With me on the other side of the table,
Chesterfield Snapdragon McFisticuffs.
Yeah, I thought we were going to do the mind-switching gag. Cause
No. I decided to take it for a full tangent. It's just because that's how I roll, yo. Plus,
no.
I mean, like, who names their kid Chesterfield anymore? I want to try and bring that back just a little bit. Put it into people's minds.
Yeah. I tried looking up Chesterfields on Wikipedia to figure out, like, why they're called that, like if they're named after a town or something.
I think they're named after a guy who invented them. Before that, nobody had a chance to sit down. They were standing all the time or sitting in horrible chairs.
Would he be Lord Chesterfield?
Well, he became a lord after he said, hey, we put some padding down on this. It's like a chair, but it's wider, and there's some stuff to push your arms on at the end. I'm going to name it after me. And they're like, oh, that's brilliant, Mr. Chesterfield. That's wonderful. We're gonna give. I don't know who this Earl of the Sandwich guy is, but we're bumping him out, and we're gonna put you in, and we're gonna call this place, Chesterfield Squire Fair.
Yeah, good. Okay, so my actual name, Josh Trelevin. Yeah,
I'm
already
Ryan Kirkby.
The
only.
We didn't actually switch brains, so I didn't fool anybody, I guess.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, you see that sort of thing happen in like the cartoons, and it's they switch the voices around.
Oh yeah.
And that's a nice, easy way to
tell
that
voice.
someone else. Yeah, and like, oh yeah, okay. So you're gonna wind up being, like this character. Unfortunately, we're not gonna actually, have you stay with the same voices or anything. So it's just gonna be that way. Although, when they did that in the Justice League Unlimited, when they switched the brains between Luthor and the Flash, they kept the voice actors the same. But that may have just been because Michael Rosenbaum did the voice of the Flash in the cartoon, but in Smallville, he was Lex Luthor. So he was the guy who was Lex Luthor, being Lex Luthor in the body of the Flash with the same voice as ever. So they might have just kept it that way for the extra fun for those who pay attention, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm not listening on these people's conversations. I'm just assuming, right?
Yep. Yeah. So welcome to the show.
Yes, the Simulationist. We have some fun little news. Officially, within the last week, the Age of Ultron trailer was released. I say officially because it got leaked a week early. Then Marvel decided to say it was Hydra that did it. Ooh, we're Hydra. And then they officially, put it up on. So you didn't have to look at some other person getting their views. So they put it up on their own, area of YouTube. But it did officially get, put on with last week's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. during the commercials. Only if you're watching from the American ABC affiliates. If you're watching from the Canadian affiliates, no, you don't get that.
So you saw it?
Only because I changed the channel at the right time.
Okay.
And then I made sure to watch the heck out of it like 7-8 times on YouTube. Oh my goodness.
Right.
I am stoked. Like I've had a lot of faith in Joss Whedon. Buffy days, great. Firefly days, great. Cabin in the Woods, amazing. Avengers, of course it grosses $1 billion. I mean, did you see Avengers? There's a reason for it. And I even liked him during some of his lesser stuff. I still do not need an apology from him for the fourth Aliens movie. I don't think he needed to apologize.
Wait, he didn't
He wrote the fourth one.
Okay, yeah. So he wasn't involved in the entire operation of it.
No, and
Execution of it, but yeah.
And you know what though is I think it was pretty good. You know, it had some good actors, in there. Winona Ryder and all that sort of fun stuff. Delved a little bit into the horrible, crazy, crapsack world the Aliens universe is in, and the characters for the mercenaries, I very much, if you watch it now, after Firefly's out and done, you can see the prototypes for the characters of the brown coats of the crew Serenity.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And so I think, if nothing else, it was a nice little, like an exercise training program for Joss to come up with Firefly, and if he hadn't written on it and done the characters as he did, then Firefly would not have been as great a series that everyone knows and loves, and should know and love. It's great, it's wonderful, it's cowboys in space. So yeah, I mean, I've had lots of faith and trust in him, and he did not let me down. I do see where everyone's comparing Ultron to Pinocchio, and the whole, Age of Ultronocchio sort of thing, a line coming from. But that's not going to stop me from seeing it at least once in the theaters, and likely buy it for full retail price when it comes out on DVD.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, that's how much I'm stoked for it all now. Is if it continues to be what they showed it to be in the trailer, I'll pay retail price for the darn thing. And when you come to a cheapskate like me, it's not that easy to get higher praise than that.
Very cool.
But they also, if you get a chance, pause what you're doing right now, listening to us, and watch the Age of Ultron trailer quickly. Get up to speed. But they also decided to officially put out their plan for the Phase 3 stuff. And I find it's interesting what they decided that they were going to do and what they haven't done. For instance, yes, they're doing a Deadpool movie. Yay, it comes out at the 2nd or 12th of February next year. So that's a good reason, to wait till next year. Because, Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool, haha, it's going to be amazing.
Uh-huh.
Or it's going to flub, and even if it flubs with Deadpool, it could wind up being sarcastically right. I meant to have it do that, I do like that they're doing a Captain Marvel movie with Carol Danvers, formerly Miss Marvel. She's Captain Marvel now. She upgraded the name. Because, captains can be female too, so you don't need to be Miss, I guess it's Captain Miss Marvel? Miss Captain Marvel? She's Captain Marvel now.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's nice to see that they are doing a female central character in one of their hero movies. I like Captain Marvel. I like the Miss Marvel thing. I've liked her for a long time. She's a very good character. Nice enough complicated back history, to explain problems so that, hey, she's not a perfect person. And that works out for, being able to tell a story. Because if you have a perfect person, it gets boring. So you grist for the future stories, right?
Yep.
But personally, if I was to have my pick of all the Marvel Universe for all the females to have, I would have preferred She-Hulk.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in the Marvel Universe, to get She-Hulk, you need another Hulk movie. There is no plans for another Hulk movie. Maybe it's because he hasn't done so well in solo movies in the past. He hurt a few people's careers. I thought the last one that they did was actually pretty darn decent. It wasn't until the Avengers movie they realized that one of the best things you can do with Hulk is a little bit of physical comedy. He's that kind of guy. You can do that sort of thing. On the other hand, Mark Ruffalo, who is currently playing Bruce Banner and the Hulk through CGI, of course, is currently penned in for a 6-film contract deal. And, he's been in the Avengers movie. That's one. Age of Ultron, well, that's another movie there. And for the end of Phase 3 is going to end off with a 2-parter, for the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. So that's 4 movies for him. But they got him penned in for 6. Where's the Hulk going to show up for 2 more movies? And I find that to be a very interesting thought question.
Uh-huh.
One of the movies they've got coming out down the line is going to be a Doctor Strange movie. Those of you who don't know Doctor Strange, he was a gifted, wonderful surgeon, but he was really kind of full of himself and kind of a dick. And then, oh no, an accident happens, and he loses his fine motor skills, so he can no longer be the world-class surgeon he once was. Goes on a journey of self-awareness and discovery, becomes a great sorcerer in the process, because apparently like surgical skills require concentration that really help you out in casting spells. And so he winds up becoming Sorcerer Supreme of Earth.
Sweet.
And I've been told that it is looking very much as though Benedict Cumberbatch is going to wind up being the Doctor.
You've been
Strange.
told by...
I've been told by the internets and the various people, yes,
Yes.
who have sway within. Which is interesting, because there was for a time, the possibility that Benedict Cumberbatch was going to be the next Doctor Who. Instead, he's going to wind up becoming the next Doctor Strange.
Different Doctor.
Different Doctor. I think he's going to bring some nice nature to the role. A lot of people see him... Well, if you've watched the Venture Brothers, Dr. Orpheus is pretty much an XP parody of what a lot of people imagine Doctor Strange to be, talking with a grand eloquence in a modern-day society where it's out of place. But Benedict Cumberbatch could pull that off. He could make that seem right, and he has enough mental oomph behind him to be the smart man you need to be both technically a surgeon, although no longer practicing, and a Grand Master Wizard. So I think you can add some class. But the thing is that Doctor Strange is part of a group called the Defenders. And who else happens to be a member of these Defenders? The Incredible Hulk. So it might be that they think, okay, Doctor Strange is a bit of an odd one. He's like a magical character, and for Thor, he was supposed to be magical, but we kind of played him off as like alien superpower, right? So I don't know if this magic thing works, is going to fly. Maybe we should pair him up with Mark Ruffalo, Bruce Banner, and the Hulk sort of thing going on here. And so it will still be about Doctor Strange, but you will need that nice little oomph, for the physical backup, comedy, physical action stuff going on. And hey, you've got the Hulk together, and that could be a nice, comparison between the two, the physical versus the mental. And I think
So you think Hulk is going to appear in that movie?
I think he's got a very good likelihood.
He's got to appear in some movie.
Well, he's not in his own movie, and a lot of people are making little comics about, like, oh boy, everyone aboard the hype train, and like Hulk shows up to the station and he's all left alone. Oh, although technically he's not alone. There's no Hawkeye movie. There's no Black Widow movie. Although, the three of them together could make a decent little ensemble cast movie going on there. So it's never too late. If you're from Marvel and you're thinking about trying to put on another movie, I think the three of them together, you bind them all up as one. I think that's pretty decent stuff.
Also, isn't there a line about Hulk, how he's never alone because he's always got... Well, Bruce Banner's never alone because he's always got the Hulk with him.
There is that, although it's kind of an unwanted company sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes he just doesn't want to have the Hulk around, and he has to. I mean, that one scene in the last movie, for the last Hulk movie he was in, where he's met Betty Ross again, and they're getting smooching and heavy. Oh, but the heartbeat thing goes off. He can't go any further because if his heartbeat continues up much faster than that, he's going to Hulk out. So it's kind of like getting blocked by an obnoxious roommate, frat boy sort of things. Oh no, we can't go any further. My roommate, the Hulk, just came in. He's been partying out there, so we're going to have to stop this fooling around. Way to block me, Hulk. It could be that they're doing an Ant-Man movie, and some of the footage I've seen for that seems very nice.
The Hulk and the Ant.
Well, the Hulk's big, powerful. The Ant-Man, he's very precise. Well, the thing about the Ant-Man, sort of thing is that you jump at a person, shrink down to ant size, and then crack you with all the momentum of a full-grown human being. And that hurts. So he's very precision sort of stuff, where Hulk is kind of like, I hurt everything in a nice, even radius about me.
I just thought of a thing for Ant-Man to try.
What's that?
There's this machine that you can buy in the stores. Well, not every store. In Canada, it's a little harder to get.
In select stores.
But it fires a projectile with many times the force of a human and concentrated into a very small area, and it's called a gun.
Well, they showed what he can do against a gun. There's one bit where a guy takes out a gun and he's trying to shoot him, but when you turn into the size of an ant, you are really hard to hit with a bullet. So he becomes like almost immune to bullets.
So he's like a bullet man. Ooh, Bullet Man. Is that a thing? Is there a superhero called Bullet Man?
We can Google that up if you want, but I'm pretty certain technically no. Although I have come up with my own superhero called, Cannon Head. The guy who's got like a cannon in his chest?
Yeah.
It wasn't his chest that got hurt. It was his head.
Yeah.
I don't explain
Canon.
how he has brains. It's just for fun.
Is it a play on headcanon? Is there a lot
it
of
can
like,
be now.
unexplained stuff in there that...
I imagine if your head is a cannon, there's a lot of stuff that goes without explanations. It's just kind of how it goes in that sort of comic.
You invite your listeners to make up their own backstories?
For Cannon Head.
For Canon.
Their own head canon on Cannon Head. But no, there's one scene where the Ant-Man, he jumps up sort of thing, and he shrinks himself down to ant size, and it's got him running along the barrel of a gun before he boots some guy right in the head.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, it is pretty nice. Now, mind you, it's not exactly the best special effects because it was a test reel for showing, like, hey, this is what we can do with this character. Do you want to make a movie out of him? But I think it's a very nice, back and forth between it. Hulk is, everything hurts. Ant-Man is like, well, just this one thing right there hurts.
I like it. Yeah, I like the contrast.
Yeah.
Is he a different color Ant-Man? Or is he normal human color? Or
he's
one of
in
the
the comics. He usually wears like a red outfit. Although that said, I hate to say this, but Dr. Pym, who is the Ant-Man, he has some issues. He seems like a generally nice guy. Unfortunately, he harbors a deep, dark under-persona. And traditionally in the comics, he's the creator of Ultron, and he uses his own mental patterns to create, Ultron's, computer brain, whatever weird term you're going to use for, synthetic brain. And it's that horrible, dark, malignant underside of his personality that causes Ultron to become the evil Ultron that we all know and hate. They're not doing that in the movies, apparently. It's going to be all based off of Tony Stark, because it's all about Tony Stark.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, Stark Industries and all that. Yeah.
But in the comics, Ant-Man, let's see, he's abused his wife, he's gone insane a few times, and I assumed at least a couple other personalities. Turns out the things that make him small, the Pym particles, because he named them after himself. You invent a particle that makes you smaller, you can name it after yourself. You can, reverse them, and you can, grow. So sometimes he's not just Ant-Man, he's Giant Man.
No, so you don't really need the Hulk then.
What's the thing is, he's not the combatant. I've seen him in the comics fighting the Hulk, and it's like, oh, you've always been a small man, Banner, and try and punch him, and then the Hulk just boom cracks him one in the kneecap, and oh no, he's a scientist, not a fighter. So Henry Pym buckles down. Him being the Giant Man works best when he's throwing something or catching something, of large size. Other than that, he actually prefers to be Ant-Man much more. Plus, when he's at that size, he's got a helmet that allows him to, send commands to ants. So it's like, I'm an evil villain, and I've got the MacGuffin that's going to blow up, we'll say Manhattan this week. And it's like, all of a sudden, oh no, I'm completely covered by ants swarming my body. Oh God, no. And so he does have that whole really creepy factor to him about it. And, in the comics, what I wouldn't give to allow him to give Spider-Man a similar helmet. Sort of thing. So I'm controlling the spiders, sort of thing. It's like, it could be fun. Unfortunately, they can't team up together because Sony owns the Spider-Man stuff, and they got plans for the next couple of years about horrible movies I don't plan on seeing. Although, if the Sinister Six movie works out well enough, I might consider it. Might.
Okay.
I don't know.
Cool.
But, it's an interesting thing to think about, your favorite heroes and the things going on there.
Well, heroic pairings.
Yeah, think about, what the
Team-ups.
Hulk work well in there. The third Thor movie is like Thor, Ragnarok. And it's like, well, if you're going to have, the Nordic end of times, what better way to throw a wrench in everything than by having the Hulk show up and fighting with you? Thor is supposed to die, fighting the Midgard serpent. The serpent, that's, coiled around the world tree. And it, bites him and poisons him. What if it's about to bite him and all of a sudden, nope, Hulk shows up, bam! Keeps the Midgard serpent from being able to close its mouth. Because Hulk strength, yo! And all of a sudden, Thor's like, oh, now I can bash your head in because your mouth is busy with a Hulk in the way. Bam, bam, bam. So I think it's very interesting to consider, okay, the major hero of this movie is Person X. Who would work nice as a little, he shows up in Act 3 to help out sort of thing because you sent out a distress call because these people are, friends. I just happen to be in the area. So, it might be that, in the next Captain America movie, which is apparently called Civil War, so it might be based off the comic arc of the same name. Maybe in that one, they have Hawkeye show up, hey.
Well, I like too that the Marvel universe, like over the years, has gotten so expansive with so many different options for heroes that basically, like, a hero can like go now open up his cell phone and just scroll through his contact list and see, okay, who's online? Okay, oh well, look, Hulk's ready.
You better be careful when you're sending the Hulk any messages. If he's sleeping, he's not going to wake up happy. He might show up to the scene, but it might not be to help you. It might be to smack you just as hard as anyone else.
Well, then he should.
Hulk was napping.
He should set his status to Hulk napping.
Hulk have unexpected nap, not planned it in advance. Watching dull movies on TV. Basic cable make Hulk snore.
But you scroll through the statuses of the superheroes. Oh yeah, so and so is out, in a different solar system. And
Thor does not currently exist in reality. Hey, but he still gets a reception in Asgard. That's pretty nifty. I gotta find out what cell plan he's got going on there.
There would be a superhero cell network, right?
I don't believe they've actually been able to do one that hooks up between Asgard and Midgard.
It'd have to be like magic or something then, right?
Yeah. You can basically just, it's like, oh, okay, I can't get a hold of Thor, but Doctor Strange is available, so I'm going to see if he can, like, relay an astral message for me. Like, does he charge for that? I mean, he is technically a doctor. Am I going to get billed? So, I think it is just a very interesting practice because, I mean, they do have enough heroes out there that you don't have to have just one hero for the superhero movie. You can have some people show up and, like, maybe they help out in Act 1. I mean, for the TV series The Flash, his first episode, when he's uncertain what to do with his amazing speeds, he goes and he talks to the Arrow in, the neighboring city. It's only a couple 500, miles away, which for him at this point in time is a decent jog away. And so it's not just him alone. It helps give a sense of a wider universe about you.
Yeah.
So I hope that they're going to take that to heart and have some fun with it. And maybe if they do have like the Hulk pop in another movie, oh no, his cousin, Jen Walters winds up getting hurt now. But that's okay. I don't need surgery, to help save the day. I just need a blood transfusion. So all I need to do, is are you the can you go back to Hulk? I need some, of your... No, go away from the Hulk. Let's not do that. Let's go back to Banner. Yes, I think Banner blood would work better. And oh, no, turns out it leaks over anyways. And she winds up becoming, the sensational She-Hulk. And that way you have her existing in reality of the movies. And then she can start popping up. Because let's face it, superheroes cause a lot of collateral damage. And it's kind of nice to have a superpowered lawyer on your side.
Yeah. Well, here's, like, one thing about She-Hulk is I think Marvel is trying very hard to, what is the word? To be more gender inclusive. Like, it's not about the female version of a superhero. Like, there's not a Captainess Marvel. There's not a, like, Thor. The female is not Thorette. It's just Thor, who's also a woman.
Although there is Valkyrie. Who did have that role before Thor for some reason. I didn't check in the comics why, but Thor is now female.
Yeah.
Or rather, there's a female wielding Mjolnir now, so she is the new Thor.
Yeah, so this is a relatively recent, or a recent effort. I mean, there are at times they're like, okay, we got to get our act together and be more inclusive and try and have more female heroes.
Well, the reason there was a She-Hulk in the first place was because of the Hulk TV series. That they realized that, the Hulk is owned by us, but any other characters that they create on the TV series, they own the rights to. So if there's a female counterpart to the Hulk, we won't be able to publish her anymore. So we better come up with a She-Hulk. And that's how you got Spider-Woman initially, too, is something similar happening. And you know what? Okay, there's been 4, maybe 5 Spider-Women throughout the years now, but She-Hulk has always been She-Hulk. She's always been sensational. Sometimes she's been savage. But she's her own person, and she's become different enough that she isn't just a female version of. She is her own person.
I believe that when it comes to the actual, when you actually read the story. But it's difficult to just, because when you make a movie, you have to do, posters, and basically the only thing you're going to have the poster is the name She-Hulk. It's and that would...
This summer, be sensational.
It's that doesn't fly in the way our culture has moved forward. It doesn't work to do She-Hulk. Like they could come up with another name for her, or just a new
Jen Walters, attorney at law,
similar powers to the Hulk, and is female. But I don't think you can put.
They have a few characters within his little Hulk world that fill that role sometimes.
Yeah, I just don't think at this point in time you can put that on a poster. At least not with the way companies are moving, and as far as all that. Just the name She-Hulk.
Well, it gets worse. I mean,
I believe it.
Betty Ross wound up getting irradiated, and while her father became the Red Hulk, or Rulk as people call him, she became the Red She-Hulk, which does not roll off the tongue. And She-Rulk just doesn't sound right either. So there is clearly at the right time for a new name. But, I mean, what are you going to do, like, right now? So right now, working title is still going to wind up being She-Hulk.
Well, working title could be... What's her, her normal, like, Bruce Banner?
She is Jen Walters.
Okay, she's Jen Walters. You could make a movie called Jen Walters.
Yeah. Walter Fall. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you could do that sort of thing. On the other hand, She-Hulk does have her legion of fans that like the name She-Hulk.
Yeah, but I just
for them it doesn't incorporate like some like brute just wandering around in ripped clothing, because it actually shows more as to the true nature of what happens when a human being gets bombarded by this Marvel world gamma radiation.
I'm in favor of the stories. I think the stories are well worth telling and worth even putting in a movie. I guess my only qualm is the title. And those, the fans that you're talking about, they'll buy the comics. Like, the comics work. Because there are
people that buy She-Hulk that just don't buy the Hulk. They prefer the stories of Jen.
Yeah. But I think when it comes to the big screen, I think there's sort of a wider, not wider, but a different culture that they have to fit into.
Okay, I didn't want to do this. There is an alternative name they use for him, because, I mean, the Hulk is sometimes called, like, Jade Jaws and stuff. They have fun, like, nicknames for it. There is another name for Jen Walters. She's green, she's about 7 feet tall, physically, there in all senses of the term, really. And so they call her the Gamazon. The Gamma Amazon.
Gamazon.
Is that any better a title? Would you go to watch Gamazon?
Well, on one axis, it's an improvement over She-Hulk, but on a different axis of dorkiness, it's not so good.
It does kind of tell you what you're getting into. If you know what gamma radiation is in Amazon, well, it kind of tells you who you're getting in with.
I mean, and there's comic book dorkiness, and then there's silly dorkiness.
This is portmanteau dorkiness, and that's its own thing sometimes. I mean, it's got to be bad if I don't want to break it out and just automatically start saying it.
Well, I'm glad you did, but yeah, there we go.
That's okay. Maybe that's the working title for the movie then, right? But
sure.
I think it'd be very nice to show in the movies, in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff. Gamma radiation has always been like it makes you want to hit things, whereas when you get bombarded by gamma radiation, it brings out who you really are.
Well,
Hulk wants to hit things because he's got some deep psychological issues involving burying his mother after his father killed her.
I like that. I like your point on Gamma. So maybe Gamma Girl or something like that. That kind of works.
But she's not. She is very much a woman.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not sure how to navigate that either, because girl might not be the preferred.
Power Girl's a very distinctive name. She is a very distinctive lady in the DC comics. Mm-hmm. But there are still people saying she's not a girl. Why don't you just call her Lady Power?
Yeah, but Gamma Girl works because of the alliteration. But I don't know. Gamma Lady, Gamma Woman,
Sweet Lady Gamma.
I don't know. It could be just called, what if her name was just Gamma? That could be a name.
I could dig with that. Yeah, I could work. But yeah, with her is that she was a very mousy lady. Never really got a chance to break loose, be free. And so for her, the gamma radiation winds up turning her into what she wants to be. Someone who's out, who's not, physically meek and, very inward. She's very extroverted. She's strong. She's gorgeously beautiful because that's what she wanted to be. That's who, she really wanted to be and deep down inside. And so I think there's a lot that can be done with her that you can't tell with a Hulk-based story. You need the She-Hulk in there, or Gamma, or any of the other names for whoever it might potentially be.
Is there already some kind of movie named Gamma? Probably, but no.
Don't know if it's a good enough movie. It doesn't come to mind right away. But and after the Phase 3, they say things are going to wind up being quite different. Like there's some plans, not written, not definitive, like for Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. As being heroes with their own movies, sort of thing. So, like, hopefully, maybe they'll be able to get to, Gamma Gal, or, like Gamazon, or whatever you want to, She-Hulk, post Phase 3. But I think the sooner you get her out there, the sooner you're going to have a really good movie, because she's got everything you need for a good movie to fire on all cylinders.
Okay.
And she can represent herself in court afterwards. She can make interesting, appearances, later on in any other movies. Like, okay, yeah, you trashed this, and I'm going to make sure you get off because you saved the city in doing so, so you should not be held accountable for your heroic vigilante actions. You were just doing your civilian duty. So, it'd be nice to see her keep popping up time and again there, and I think as soon as you get her in, the better off everyone else is for that. But that's just me. But yeah, keep an eye out. Look up everyone out there as to what movies are coming out. See which ones look good for you. Time it up right. You might not like Ant-Man. You might not like a guy who can, run along the barrel of a gun and then just, boot somebody with his disproportionately powerful kneecap. Maybe that's completely your thing. Maybe you want to see a special effects extravaganza as to what a person can do with this completely real world logical ability and power set. I've got high hopes from the test reel I've seen that they can do some fun with it. I think everyone should be happy with Deadpool. Because Ryan Reynolds is finally getting in on that. It's taken him so long, and if everything goes right, we can completely forget about Wolverine Origins version of Deadpool. And we can just completely erase the second half of that movie out of existence, because the first half was pretty darn decent. Got to show everyone nice there. So yeah, we can completely erase that from existence. And with Deadpool in, he could make some fun appearances, in the backgrounds of any other superhero movie too. So there's a lot of good potential, a lot of good fun to be had. And that's the big thing for this week is plans for Marvel, and spend some time thinking about how the heroes team up together, because I think that's the mark of what true heroism is. You're not hogging all the glory for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so who works well? Would Hawkeye work well with a Doctor Strange? It's I cast spells. It's now I've got a barrier around me, says the big evil guy. No magic can pass this, and what? Oh, now you got a big graphite shaft stuck in your abdomen. I didn't see that one coming, did you? So I there could be some fun to be had, although I do believe the Hulk plays a better contrast for Doc Strange. Mm-hmm. That's just me, though. You never know. Properly written, any two heroes can work out, but you have to figure out how they work well together.
Mm-hmm. Well, the comics have been doing this for years and years.
Oh, I gotta say, from what I've seen for some things, I haven't seen the full issue of it, but there's a team up with Deadpool and Hawkeye. And it's just loaded worth of fun.
Okay.
The villains wind up, they don't even do it right because they don't get the names right for either of them. They call Hawkeye Shaft because he's got a shaft sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And
shaft of an arrow, yeah.
Yeah, and they call Deadpool Ninja Spider-Man.
Okay.
I don't think they'll be able to get that one through in the movies, but it's just such a fun combo between the very serious Clint Barton and I am insanely just joyful for all this crazy life I have, Deadpool, Wade Wilson. Mm-hmm. So yeah, spend some time thinking about it. Look at the movies and think who could be a good co-star in that one. Who have I already seen? I wouldn't mind seeing again pop up and help out.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So that's that.
Yes.
And we want to talk about just maybe briefly, but what else we've been up to for our own adventures in our various simulated worlds.
Yes. What's in your big thing this week, Josh?
Oh.
Wait! I can read your mind. I see blocks.
Yeah.
Cuboidal blocks of various images. It's some sort of where you craft a mine. Is that right? Does that mean anything to you?
I did play a lot of Minecraft.
My cold reading was a success.
Yeah. Had I joined the Rockblock server last time?
You mentioned that you were starting it up and you'd given it a little bit of a whirl.
Yeah. So I'm playing on a server now, so I'm meeting new friends and new people on there. I've put up some videos of me going on that server and sort of interacting with people and this. And
you're not burying dynamite in weird, crazy locations where people are likely to encounter
I haven't yet. But
now that the idea's out there, well, I guess you gotta.
The other thing, I just watched a trailer for the Grumpy Cat movie.
I'm still very hesitant on that.
I am definitely going to watch that movie. And, I know it's one of those ones that is going to be terrible. I'm going to watch it anyways.
Right now, my fears are putting it around the Air Bud series.
Oh, yeah.
Or Beverly Hills Chihuahua. That's my current bar. That's where my bar is set on this. If it winds up doing better than that, I guess I'll be pleasantly surprised. I'll say, I guess it's kind of like a Garfield-type movie. It's just not bad.
I suspect it's going to be worse than the, what was the... Air Bud was the first Bud movie? And then
Air Bud. And it was like Air Bud basketball, Air Bud soccer, Air Bud...
Yeah, and then Air Bud has puppies and...
all sorts of crazy stuff. He does hockey, and there might be. I know there was definitely a basketball one. I don't think there was. No. My mind is telling me there was a football one as well. I don't think I saw anything more than the trailer.
I don't know what to say about the Grumpy Cat. Is like a whole hour of just watching a cat that really doesn't do much. I mean, it just has a weird facial expression, and people
sourpuss.
People carry it around and they make it they voice over some of the stuff it says, but
it's Garfield.
Yeah.
It's
very much Garfield. But yeah, I'm excited.
On the other hand, the last couple of Garfield movies weren't, firing on all cylinders themselves. So maybe this winds up being better than the Garfield movies.
But I would say watch at your own risk, and don't take my enthusiasm as a indicator that you should also be enthusiastic.
Wait until it starts coming out in the theaters. Find your friendly, neighborhood, reviewer for that sort of thing. I try to default to Movie Bob myself over on the Escapist Network. Sometimes he's a little, full of himself, but by and large, he's not wrong.
Okay.
Except about Kevin Smith. He was completely wrong on the rise and fall of Kevin Smith. He's still doing great, Kevin.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, heck, he just made a movie where a man turns another man into a walrus. How can that not be awesome?
Well, it's awesome in the on the other side of the edge. It's sort of awesome, Sharktopus and
within
stuff.
The last week, though, if you go and search out for the first time in a very long time, Kevin Smith has shaved off his beard for the movie. He's doing Yoga Hosers.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, it's creepy because it's I kind of recognize the face, and it's what the heck is up with that lower half? Because it should be like with a nice layer of good fuzz, man. Where's the Silent Bob, mustache? And it's ugh, don't look directly at this, the bald, face of Silent Bob, man. So a fun way to mess with your own head if you want to go that way. But that's a nice little tangent.
And the other thing I did was, I didn't actually finish. I started watching the movie Noah. So I have no spoilers in between now and
Noah
the next...
spoilers?
Did you see Noah at all?
No, I wasn't able to see it in the theaters because I've got a kid. And I think there's only going to wind up being one or two movies she's going to watch before I can tell her, you're going to have to sit down and have to be very quiet for these 2 hours because everyone else here paid money to see it. Not hear you screaming out other stuff. And I don't want to be the parent who brings that kind of, screaming kid into a movie theater.
Yeah.
I've yelled at that parent before. I don't want to become that parent.
Yeah. So Noah, I'm only half an hour into it, something like that. But I think it's very cool. And it's not what I expected either. It's almost sci-fi. It's got these alien monsters that are angels, that are the fallen angels.
To be fair, the angels really looked pretty creepy. This whole, oh yes, these cherubs are little tiny babies with wings. No, No, that's not really much what the Bible says for angels. They got crazy things like flaming cartwheels with wings, man, like 6 wings. It's like it's like something you'd see on like a Metallica album coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, actually, we can do better than Metallica. Something over towards a Megadeth or even a Black Sabbath cover. Something really out there.
But what I'm missing so far, there's been some hints at sort of a steampunky or like, you know, with pulleys and ropes and like it's what would it be? Something punk. It would be like
stone punk,
timber and stone punk, kind of the whole like, you know, a lot of ropes and pulleys and like people lifting things and like elaborate sort of cranes that look like they could fall down and but there's only been hints of that, and I really wish that maybe more will turn up towards the end. Although I think something happens to destroy all the machinery in the movie. I haven't got to that part yet either.
I'm okay. I haven't seen the movie either, but I'm going to put some money down. $5 non-dollars on fire. A fire takes it all out. Now, I haven't read much about what happens with Noah and all that whole thing. I'm going to bet fire.
Well, you can't base your expectations on the book because people look at Lord of the Rings. Look how much Peter Jackson changed in that.
To be fair, there was some stuff he had to change. Very few people really understand what the heck's going on with that Tom Bombadil guy.
Yeah. So let's see. So there's that. So I wish there was more of that. It felt very sci-fi. I thought they could have gone like the whole 9 yards and say, yeah, it's definitely an alien, like, you know, make God an alien and like all the angels aliens and like, you know, there's this whole plot. It really could have worked, but I think that, I don't know, people would have liked that.
But what if you put it into like a humor thing where it's like aliens, but it's like those little tiny, like, you know, big-headed, you know, like gray aliens, but they got some like fake, you know, bird wings like glued onto their back, you know, like hot glued onto the back sort of thing. I am an angel, Noah. Oh, you know, you can actually see the strings holding them up, sort of thing. They're aliens, but they're on a budget, man. So they just found like a seagull, ripped the wings off, hot glued them onto the back of the one poor alien, and they got him suspended on a long string.
Well, string, okay, but now
well,
that
I guess it'd be like whatever, you know, future thing that aliens have in place of string. Well, diamond gallium wire.
Sure, but now that you mentioned that, I'm thinking like, what if they had like a holographic projector system, and they're like, it shows them in the ship like being sort of Three Stooges bumbling with the projector machine, and then Noah's like, "Yes, God, I'm listening to you, God," and then God's like flickering out, like, "Hang on, Noah, just a second," and they're like playing with the holographic projector, like, "Can't get it to
help me, Noah. You're my only hope." Oh, no, wait, that hasn't happened yet. No, make that.
Different planet.
Wrong galaxy, sorry.
That was a different galaxy. Also, we have to go back in time to a long time ago.
Well, maybe if they're still making that reference in the galaxy by the time the aliens are there.
Yeah.
Good work.
Did you ever think about, though, I just realized the other day that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, some galaxies can be, you know, a billion light years away. So the light from the events of Star Wars would be just reaching us now.
Depends on how long ago. I remember actually looking up some stuff, and the Andromeda Galaxy, you know, our galactic, you know, neighbor.
Yeah, what's that? Like 1,000 light years away?
2.4 million.
Okay.
If they were looking at Earth, they don't get a chance to see the dinosaurs. That's already gone and passed for them. So even at such huge distances, because light travels so darn fast, although they're not, you know, seeing you and I going out there, you know, when we're, you know, out and about on our daily activities, they don't get a chance to, oh, look at these dinosaurs, man, this is awesome. I kind of wish they'd lay on their side more so I could get a good profile of them. That's already past the entire, you know, Andromeda Galaxy. So
yeah,
we might have wound up missing, you know, the whole thing because, it turns out the galaxy far, far away isn't far, far away enough for it to have, you know, come in. Plus, our telescopic abilities are really poor compared to what you need to see for on another planet. Oh, well.
Yeah, and there's theoretical limits as to the possibility of optics seeing like into other galaxies.
You need some very large lenses, or alternatively a bunch of similar small lenses spaced far enough apart to create a composite image, in which case you're basically creating like some sort of, you know, like planetary eyeball.
Sweet.
Which, you know, now that I think about it, giant like eyeball floating through space like the size of a planet looking at things, That's pretty metal.
Yeah,
put a pin in that. That's going to be a weird, crazy, villain in a
forget
horrible...
a trip to Mars. I mean, how about, a galactic eyeball? That's way cooler.
We are going to Oculus. Da-da-dun, da-da-da-dun, da. And I'm just picturing it, with just like the whole, tendon off the back of the side of it. And even though it's just an eye, it still blinks every once in a while somehow. Ooh.
I like the thought, too, you could be, the Starship Enterprise or something, and you could be, traveling through space, and then some aliens just stop you and say, you're kind of in the middle of our eye network?
You are really messing up our reception. We're trying to get some stuff from, a neighboring galaxy, and, you've ruined, 3 months' worth of data. Data. Data's his own guy.
Data's a person. Data is the thing, I guess.
So, could you please just...
You've ruined 3 months' worth of data. Oh, no, Captain, 3 months of my life. No, he's talking about their data, not you.
Oh, what did your freaking, build... What was the proper name? Is it, was the guy who built Data, his father, or was it, some other, term for it?
Oh, Data calls him his father. Yeah. Because Data wants to think of himself as sort of more human.
But I know in the Clone High series, the various clones refer to the original incarnations as their clone father and clone mother.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely have a...
Dr. Soong? Is that?
Yeah.
That was his name.
So they definitely have some more interesting names, than just Father Soong. It'd be my engineer Father Soong.
Yeah, I think Starfleet probably refers to him as Data's creator, but also Data's Captain Picard and all them would probably, speaking to Data, they would probably
colloquially
say, your father, because they're friends with him.
Oh, except for Dr. Pulaski, because she was
she didn't think Data was a person.
God, I want to smack her sometimes.
Which is
not the actress. I mean, it's a good measure of the actress to create a character you hate. Yeah. And still pull it off so convincingly. So I don't want to smack the actress, but boy, do I want to smack that character. Oof.
Well, and it's a bit of a problem because you would think in the 23rd century they would realize, there's different ways of being alive, and you wouldn't.
She was basically equivalent of a bigot.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to make it into Starfleet Academy and through with believing that sort of thing about.
You're not a human. You're just one of them blue Tellurians. You don't qualify as a real thing. Go clean my floors, non-human.
Although, I guess, if you're a medical professional, you enter Starfleet in a little bit different way. You might go to a private academy.
Same way Hawkeye and B.J. Honeycutt and the were part of the military in MASH.
So maybe she was, at an ultra-conservative medical university or something like that.
I do know in the original series, the nurse that they had, I can never remember her name. She was always working with Bones in the medical lab. She joined Starfleet to be,
Nurse Chapel.
Yeah, Nurse Chapel. That's it. Thank you. Nurse Chapel, had a good career in biomedicine. She could have been in, but she joined Starfleet. So it is a way that you can join up and be in part of their medical program.
Yeah.
But I don't think everyone's that way. I think it's okay, now you gotta you want to do some work. Well, they got an opening here. Go fill it. Go. Shoo.
Okay, so yes, that was my week in simulations. A couple of little things.
I had a wicked good Halloween this week.
Oh yes, Halloween happened. I didn't really do so much, but
well, we were going to take my daughter to two malls, sort of thing. One mall was open from 3 to 4 for the go door to door and do the trick or treating. The other was going to be 4 to 6. But she didn't have her nap at the right time, and we decided, you know what? We'd rather have a kid be well rested and go to one place as opposed to be cranky and go to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we wound up taking her only to the one Mayfair mall, and as soon as we got there, it was 4, just as soon as we're starting, and it was wall to wall kids at some areas, and it was just swarming, and oh my goodness! But I really liked the variety of costumes.
Mm-hmm.
Really good makeup on some of the adults. Some of the adults were dressing up just for the kids, but they were making sure they were doing a good dress up.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anything tops the smile on my daughter's face when I wore the Batman mask in my costume.
She likes that, eh?
Well, last year, the concept of me putting on a mask scared her so much. She was crying and just absolutely hysterical. I imagine because, kids don't, perceive things the same way you and I do. When they're really young, like sometimes they'll get more towards the outline of a face, and then everything comes up together, and they see the face in a different way. So for her, last year was like, Dad, you've basically ripped your face off and put a new one on. That's really crazy, and you're scaring me. Please cut it out.
I doubt she went that dark with ripping off your face.
Well, it's like I put on an entirely new top half of my face. I took off my glasses, and for her, my glasses are like a very much a part of who I am.
It's probably more like, oh, that's a different scary person that I don't know.
But I put the mask on right in front of her. She's happy. Like, here's the mask. Okay. Here's Daddy's face.
Yeah.
Put the mask over top, and then she starts crying because it was just too much of a change to my face. It'd be like your face kind of like melting or something. Be like, it doesn't look right anymore.
Yeah, sure.
This year, I mean, I've been watching the Adam West Batman stuff with her. She's been quite happy at watching that. Oh my, you should hear her laugh whenever the Riddler laughs. Like, Frank Gorshin's laugh is just manic and wonderful and high-pitched. And now whenever he laughs, she'll laugh in a similar style. And it's so adorably, like evil. But she's okay with Batman now, so when she saw, oh, that's Batman there, she wasn't crying, like, who's the stranger in my place? That's Batman! Batman! And then, I lifted up the cowl a little bit to show her, it's just that, and she beamed, it's like, oh, my dad is Batman! And she's just the big, like, she's got a grin on, we got a few photos of her, it's just a grin on her face, she is so happy. And throughout the entire time we were out there, she was always looking back and smiling, like, yeah, that's my dad. My dad is Batman. Wow. So now she believes apparently that her dad is Batman.
Yeah, and that sounds good to you.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
although if she gets to be 19 and still thinks you're Batman, maybe you should have a talk with her.
Yeah, well, I'm going to hopefully settle that score when she goes 6 and still believes I'm Batman.
Sorry.
Because that's when as things start coming down. It's like, oh yeah, my dad can beat up your dad because my dad is Batman. And like, well, I don't want to be put in that corner, kiddo. So I mean, I could probably hurt a guy. I don't know if I'd win the fight, but yeah, it was very good, very well liked. And I mean, the costumes were just so varied. I mean, like vampire princesses running about, good costumes, homemade costumes. Great makeup jobs on some of the kids, mostly on the adults, because, kids and face makeup don't exactly go well together. Kid gets, a little bit of sweat, touches their face, and next thing you know, everything they touch has got makeup on it, right? But it was just nice to see the amount of variety, because I grew up in a small town. There wasn't a lot of variety, and if you wanted something, you'd have to go to the one store, and the store sold like 4 costumes. Mm-hmm. So if there was a new costume out, a lot of people would be wearing one of those new 4 costumes. So it is nice to see. Everyone was enjoying it. Good, happy fun had by so many. Mm-hmm. And because she was doing so good, and we stopped off at HMV last, we picked her up the next My Little Pony movie. So when everyone gets the time to sit down together, we're going to watch it with her, and hopefully she will, because she's watching that first movie so much. I'm afraid of like wearing out the disc. It'll be like she'll want to watch it as soon as it's over again. And there are worse movies and things for a kid to watch over. I mean, there's some pretty boring and badly done stuff on, basic cable for kid shows. So I'm okay with that. But it's going to be nice to get a little bit more variety in her watching. So, hooray! Other than that, Ghost in the Shell and a nice old-fashioned movie. It's interesting because now when I'm watching the old movies, the old horror movies I watch every Saturday night, I go on my little netbook and I look up what year it was in and what was going on in that year.
Yeah.
And this movie was released in 1940. What was happening in 1940? Well, the Nazis were storming Scandinavia. And it's like, oh, so while I'm watching these guys, tell this wonderful sci-fi story here, the Nazis were basically running rampant in Europe, and it's like, that's kind of harsh. But I suppose America wasn't really part of the war effort, in 1940, so might as well make some movies for the rest of the world when everything dies down again, right? It's a thing.
Well, you keep doing at least that seems to be our, especially post 9/11. It's like what the way you react to. The way America reacts to tragedy is do what you do, only harder.
Well, it's a bit of a different thing, because when America entered World War II, they went into total war mode. Yeah. In which case, there was no distinction made between civilian property and items and military military items and property. Everything was military.
Yeah, it's true. And
all gears focused, every intellectual brain starts like, okay, how can we hurt Nazis more?
Yeah, and if you were if you were our age, and you weren't actually volunteering for the military, you'd be like, they would be like, oh, why not? Like, what are you doing instead? Like, are you?
I'm contributing to the war effort. I'm, sending like a ton of tin and other metals a week to the proper areas. I'm making sure that there's planes for these guys to drive, and boats for them to sail around in, because they keep sinking. Darn it, those U-boats. Other than that, I mean, not everyone was good enough for a war. I mean, just look at the first Captain America movie. Steve Rogers was nowhere near fit to serve in the American forces until he decided to become chemically enhanced, right? But that didn't stop him from trying, and there was a lot of other things he could have done to help out with the war effort at home.
Yeah.
It happens. But yeah, I mean, since then, very few nations go straight to war, and everything is war now.
Yeah.
Even like the whole, I guess, civil war, insurrection going on in Syria, however you want to look at it, even then it's not 100% war mode. It's pretty darn bad and pretty darn nasty, but it's even that isn't full war mode.
Yeah, there would be some people doing other things.
Just trying to get by.
It's very hard to operate a business in a war zone, but I think some people do try and do it.
So it's really a different mindset, and I like to get my head into the right era of what's going on, how are people thinking. But it was a very good movie. Called Black Friday. Long story short, English professor gets hit by a mob car in an accident. The mobster is injured, but I mean that professor is dying. He's got brain hemorrhages, front and back. There's parts of his brains that are bruised that'll never recover. He has hours, maybe just an hour left to live, sort of thing. Meanwhile, the mobster that hit him, he's paralyzed. His legs are no-go, spinal injuries, right? And so the professor's best friend is a surgeon, a brain surgeon. And what does he do? He takes the bruised parts, the damaged parts of the professor's brain out of his head and puts in the parts from the mobster. And so the mobster's effectively dead. But the mobster's not gone, because it's part of his brain in there. Under the right circumstances, his personality can come forward. And so he'll become the mobster Red Cannon. And he knows the stuff. And Red Cannon died in a mob fight because he had hid $500,000. In 1940, $500,000 was stupid amount of money. He had $500,000 hidden away somewhere. And so the brain surgeon realized, $500,000, I can set up a laboratory for life, and I can keep working on surgical brain operations, and I can benefit all the world with this. So he coerces his friend into going to New York City and putting him up in the same area where Red Cannon was, back when he was alive, and forcing Red Cannon out to try and figure out where the money is. Meanwhile, Red Cannon's got his other plans because his 4 gang members betrayed him, so he's off to start choking necks, right? And I liked it. It was very decently done. As brain transplant stuff goes, not like, oh yeah, I switched brains and then you still have the same personality. How does that work? Because that's what they did in the Frankenstein movies. The Frankenstein monsters, there's but we're going to switch your brain out with something less abnormal, and then you'll wind up being, not a killer. And they never really regard the fact that switching a brain out is basically like moving a person into another body. They just assume that it's oh yeah, I suppose if we take your brain out and put someone else's in, you'll still be you, but you won't have the impulses of your bad brain. You'll have the good impulses of a healthy brain. It's you hurt my brain trying to explain that. It's that's not how brains work, buddy. Ow, you're hurting me with this. And so in this case, because it wasn't all of the brain, it was just certain parts of it, it made it at least a little bit more believable in this case. Plus the big name horror actors of their day in there. The betraying leader of the gang for the mobsters was Boris Karloff, and so you hear his wonderful, Eastern European accent. He sounds like Dracula and everything he does, and it's always nice to hear his voice. So spoiler alert: very few people get out alive. But it got me thinking as I was watching it, because by 1940. It was kind of known you can't just toss a brain back and forth around in various skulls and keep your personality. You change the person, because that's where you are. It's not as people used to believe, like it was your heart where you kept you, and your brain was just like, I don't know, I guess it's for cooling down your head or something. They had learned since then. But you know what? I still see it happening in the movies, and time and again, and they seem to ignore the fact that, science has proven that no, brains really are a lot more complex than that. And they'll still do us like a story where, like, hey, I put your brain in that of a gorilla. Have fun. Why? Because it tells such a good and evocative story about being in somebody else's body. And I think that's worthy of a decent topic for us this week. It's both the concept of, like, brain switching. Because it used to be stuff like possession, like, oh no, it's not you in your body. It must be a demon in there. You have been possessed. Oogie boogie boogie boogie. And that works, especially for supernatural stuff, but, it doesn't work quite that well in sci-fi. So you're going to have to switch brains around, and that leads to wonderful things like, oh no, now you're a human with the body of a gorilla. Or you've got part of your brain switched, so when you fall asleep, you become someone else entirely. A Jekyll and Hyde sort of thing, with less chemicals and at least some explanation. That's all I really ask, right? So, what's your opinion on this, Josh? Is the concept of switching bodies, despite the fact that science has proven no, you can't just pop brains in and out like batteries. It still persists in the stories, cartoons, all sorts of things. I mean, heck, there are sometimes where they don't even switch brains. It's like, oh yes, and then your minds got switched, and no surgery needed.
Yeah, well, what are you asking? Like, are those good stories? Sure, yes.
Like, do you think there's anything particular interesting relevance in that they keep telling the story despite the fact that we have some very good medical evidence saying that, no, you can't just switch minds with a blast of a ray gun. It's all in your neurons there.
Yeah, well, I sort of have a pet theory on why this story is persistent, and it's not just because it is yet another cool idea that you can play around with, but one of the reasons I think it sticks around is because it gives actors sort of a chance to try out a little something different, and that is that it's a very actorly thing for the actor to pretend to be a character that normally they're playing against, so they're swapping roles there. So,
that was one of the reasons I like Brendan Fraser in the movie Bedazzled. He doesn't give one good role. He gives like 6 good roles. He's 6 different real people. One core underlying sense of who he is, but he keeps changing him. And that's pretty good to see that the versatility in the chops that way.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it also, in a way, it connects to the actorly profession of just the fact that actors already do that. They already pretend to be other people. They already sort of step into someone else's skin and pretend to be someone else. So that's already very integrated into the...
It's an intrinsic nature of being an actor.
And storytelling, too, for that matter. If you're narrating a story, you're also sort of inhabiting characters to some extent. So it's... Yeah.
It's very interesting. I do know that a lot of actors and actresses like to try and be the central character in the Jekyll and Hyde story because they like to show off, like, I'm the mild-mannered Dr. Jekyll. Here I am, and all of a sudden, I'll apply the makeup quickly as I'm hurting, and all of a sudden, I'm the vicious Mr. Hyde. I'm the human soul unbound by consciousness, and I will walk straight on top of another person because they mean nothing to me. I'm evil.
Yeah, and it turns up, like every sort of cartoon does a version of it. Do you remember, like...
I remember a couple of cartoons, and in a lot of cases what they wind up doing is switching the voice actors back and forth. I mentioned this earlier on in the podcast of one instance where they didn't, but that may have been for other reasons. I find that one a little lazy, honestly. when they just switch voices.
Well, yes, because I mean the voice is part of the body for sure. Although because actors, if you pay attention to, well, especially voice actors who do like impressions and stuff, they can have a fairly wide range of, like they can modulate their voice to sound just like, another person. So an accent, for example, would your accent stay with your brain, or is
it should stay with your you?
Yeah.
I can speak normally. I can slip into like some of the idiosyncrasies of my hometown region, and if need be, everyone can start speaking with a Scottish accent because it's just so fun, and all accents eventually degrade into Scottish, as your skill starts breaking down.
Right.
At least that's my theory.
Yeah, that's about right.
But when it comes to the whole thing about switching bodies in a cartoon style, I noticed they switch the voices around because that's an easy way for you to tell whose mind is where.
Yeah.
Sometimes they even bring that up, like, whoa, why does your voice sound different? It's like, well, because I'm voiced by another actor, that sort of thing. But I haven't actually seen that one given for an answer. But I'm remembering one episode of, it was Third Rock from the Sun, where, because they're aliens inside, the humans that you see is the various, Solomon family. That's just, like a mecha, human robot that each of their little purple tube people are piloting.
Mm-hmm.
And so it winds up being a thing like when they switch out, they have to adopt the mannerisms of the whole thing. And I found that to be excellent, how well they were able to pick up, like, Harry's actually in the body of someone else now, but he's still acting like Harry, and his eyes, kind of do the semi-closed thing, and he's acting, and he really, it does look like it's, okay, yes, the purple tube who was Harry is now in this body.
Yeah.
And so that works out great, and I don't understand why they don't do that sort of thing in cartoons, because to be an actor on a live set and imitate somebody else's little quirks and styles, that takes a lot of skill. It takes knowing the person very well who you're imitating, and it takes, a lot of concentration to get it done right, to suppress your own stuff and who you are and put that other person's mannerisms up front. Whereas in a cartoon, all you have to do is just say, okay, now do the little ticks, reverse them for who does what. It's that easy, buddy. And so it seems almost like they're doing it a little lazy by switching the voices, and that's it. And it's like, oh, you guys could have done so much better.
Well, it depends on the cartoon, because I think sometimes they will be good at that, and they'll even take, sometimes with cartoons, depending on how cartoony it is too. There's a scale of, but some cartoons will take like a even a hairstyle or like something, and they'll sort of mimic it a little bit. It'll be like
they like to comb their hair this way, so they'll intrinsically do it so the hairstyle's a little different, looking a little bit more like the other person.
Well, it might even, but some cartoons, again, the more cartoony ones, it might be like a bald character suddenly has their head is shaped in the haircut of the character that they're being.
Yeah, right? That's kind of creepy, because it's like, whoa, that used to be your skull. What's going on there?
Well, exactly, because it's a cartoon.
And then you've got stuff like The Simpsons, where the hair is actually what's causing the change in personality, and so it winds up like, well, if the hair is able to dig into the brain and start changing things. Well, of course, when Snake's persona comes out on Homer, his hair just automatically shifts into Snake stuff.
Did they ever do a brain switch in the Halloween Simpsons?
Well, I mean, it started. One of the first ones was Homer's brain in a robot's body.
Okay.
And then one of the other ones, a couple of years down the road, was Snake dies and his hair, gets used for a transplant on Homer. So he gets a hair transplant, but the hair digs its way into his brain and starts taking over on him.
It makes him evil, yeah.
Well, it makes him Snake out for revenge, which I guess is, evil.
Yeah.
And, in that case, it's so cartoony to not do it. It almost seems like a shame, especially because no one else is noticing his hair shifting and moving on its own, style and sense. In that case, I think they could have had a lot of fun with a brain switch. Like if they had taken all of the characters that, that what's-his-face does, because Harry Shearer does the voice of like 24 different characters in The Simpsons. He is, the sailor. He's Mr. Burns. He is Homer Simpson. And it would be nice if they had switched all of those brains around, so that's the same one guy doing all the same voices, just in a different, when they animate it, it's, oh no, now it's this voice goes to this body here and back. They could have had a lot of fun just showing, maybe a little more low key, but showing to the world just how many voices this one guy does on this series. So I don't know. The Simpsons is still going, so knock on wood, they still have an opportunity to do such a nice little story.
I haven't watched The Simpsons in a long time, so maybe they even have. I don't know. I should watch it again. I mean, I'm sure it's okay.
From what I've seen, it's not bad, but it doesn't have that same vital spark it did back in the day. That's it. I mean, I've seen worse on. I've sat through worse on TV just because there was nothing else on, and I didn't feel like doing anything else. So it's not that bad. It's no Futurama, though. I'll give it that. But okay, so let's go back to the more live action, or at least story-based stuff for transplanting a brain, or at least switching the bodies around.
Mm-hmm.
I think the metaphors for that, like the walk a mile in someone else's shoes, the best way to do that is to also have their legs, torso, and other assorted good and plenty, right? In which case, it's a good story of like knowing what the other person is like. I mean, let's see, what was the name of that? I Am Curious Black. It was a story of a person who a white guy disguises himself off as like a black person and goes to live in the inner city to find out what it's like to live this lifestyle. Some people say it's not a good story to tell because if you're a black person in the ghetto in some of the worst parts of America, you can't just put on makeup. Oh look, now I'm a white person and I get to leave this lifestyle. Whereas the person who goes in and becomes is like, okay, I have learned some wonderful lessons. Now I'll stop being black, I'll start being white again, and I'll just leave. So there are some people that say it's not a very good story to tell, that someone's co-opting the experiences for their own benefit. On the other hand, as long as you get the message out that, hey, the life these people are living is this kind of way. If you get that out to a general audience, I mean, that's sharing of knowledge between, groups, and that can only lead to benefits in the end, provided it's a truthful representation of what things are like.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's definitely something you have to be sensitive around, but yeah,
and so
it's worth telling.
So there is a number of stories where that is effectively the moral, where it's like, oh, now all of a sudden you're wearing so-and-so's body, you've got to live their life, and what you thought was an easy street life, you realize is not as easy as you once thought. So it's, oh, hey, I'm in the rich kid's body, so now I get to be, I've got money, I've plenty. But no, you're under the auspices of, the rich parents who, if you want the money, you got to do this, you got to jump through these hoops as we command, or you are out of the will, buddy. Whereas the person's like, oh, but I get to be in the free kid's body, he's not underneath these restrictions of, the parents always telling me what to do. Every single moment of my life is not all planned out. But, he winds up, I don't have the money to go and have the fun I want to have because, I'm not a rich kid. And so each of them learns their wonderful little lesson, and then, hey, whatever happens, unhappens or happens again, and their bodies, minds switch back to the regular order, and congratulations, lesson learned, everyone grows a little bit.
Yeah, well, I guess one thing I'll say about that whole thing is that it's unfortunate, I think it is human nature though, but it's unfortunate that you would have to go as far as like having another experience just to learn a simple thing like empathy, just to learn to not treat people. But I think it is the case that human beings, especially if you're in a place of comfort and privilege, or just you have something that other people don't have, it just is the case that we're not empathetic unless we actually have some sort of way to connect it to ourselves.
That's why I think the Cosby Show did it better. When Theo needs to find out what the real world is like, they set up the inside of the house as though like a real world experience. He's got to rent a room, he's got to find an apartment, sort of thing. And he wants all that stuff in his room, well, he's got to go buy it at the pawn shop. It ain't cheap, sort of thing. So he learns a lesson that way, and then they don't have to be like, and all of a sudden he's in the body of someone who's out on their own, or he tries to go live on his own at age 16 and finds out, oh no, life is harsh. So yeah, I think there are other ways to do it, and the Cosby Show did it wonderfully. But it's the Cosby Show. They did a lot of things wonderfully that just doesn't get repeated maybe because it's easier to tell a story where it's like, okay, and then all of a sudden they switch their minds.
Yeah.
How does that work? Well, science be darned. It's just how it's happening. We've got ray guns for that now.
Yeah. Well, I like the thought, too. I mean, it may be possible in the future to do, like, what the doctor in the show said. Like, you'd have to, spend time in the hospital and whatever. But, I mean, it might be possible to connect up parts from separate people's brains.
Well, there's always the risk of, organ failure in this case, because the body rejects it as an alien entity within the body, its own self.
Yeah, but that's not the issue of connecting the brain. I mean,
this the movie Black Friday took place in 1940. There was not like a stem cell, we'll just put a stem cell paste here, and then when it connects up and heals up into proper neural connections. We don't have to singly put each neuron bundle connected line up together.
Yeah, well, I don't know if
which is now the current easy way of doing that sort of thing in the science fi.
Okay, I don't know if you've read about the people who have had the two halves of their brains has been
injured, separated, and they have.
Sometimes it's through injury. Sometimes it's because if they have epilepsy or something, it can be a cure.
It's not the best cure, not a guaranteed cure, but it does work for some.
Yeah, and then basically the two halves, they can interview someone, and I can't remember now if it's you close one eye or something like that, but they can interview someone and get different answers depending on which half of the brain is, because the two halves are not communicating to each other. So it's almost like having two people in there.
It would be interesting to see how that applies to a regular person by forcing them to take a test with one eye open versus the other eye, sort of thing, and or answer on a number pad with left hand versus right, and see how that all works out.
Yeah, but I'm probably getting all the details. I'm not giving you too many details, but I'm probably getting them all wrong. What I am getting, and so probably listeners should probably just look it up and find out for themselves, or become a medical doctor and.
Well, the brain is a weird, mysterious place, because, if your brain gets damaged, other parts will pick up the slack, sort of thing, and so you can relearn how to do it through other parts of your brain.
Sometimes, yeah.
And sometimes you don't even need part of your brain, because it's like that part of your brain is a tumor. So we'll get rid of the tumor, and there'll be nothing in that spot, but you're still as fine as ever. And it's like, dude, there is a pocket of, nothing in my brain space. And it's doing nothing. It's like a sponge in there. That's it. But I'm not any worse for wear. What was I doing with that part of my brain before it got all big and tumorous? And then you start worrying, whoa. And you sit down and, for a while, it's like, what am I doing with how much of my brain do I need? How much can I afford to lose? If I give someone a piece of my mind, can I actually do that and still leave and be me? Oh, man. The deep thoughts you have to think as you're laying down at night, in the depths of night. It's like, how does that work, man? Whoa. So, in that thing, you could make an interesting thing like, this person is just dead, and so we're going to, we took out the tumor view and we just slotted in with what their part of the brain was. Neuro, like a stem cell paste, everything connects up, and hey, how'd you learn to play the piano like that? Surgery. I'm still a little rusty around my arm, so I gotta do the physical practice. But it's there. Actually,
we were talking about voices a little bit before, and it occurs to me that if you actually if there was a super futuristic procedure that stitched brains together and created a hybrid brain of two different people. There would probably be an adjustment period where you would basically have to relearn. Well, depending on what parts of the brain were damaged.
Pre-coordinated. It'd be kind of like being after a nasty accident. You got to retrain a little bit of this, get back up off to speed because you're a little bit behind the curve.
So you may actually have to learn to speak, because this happens when people get brain damage. Sometimes they have to learn how to speak all over again. We saw this with the congresswoman who got shot in the United States.
That's right.
She was shot in the head and she recovered. She survived, but she had to go through intensive therapy just to speak. And it was very emotional too when you hear her giving a speech in front of her constituents in her wherever she lived. In her riding, yeah. She giving a speech and she sounds a little bit what do you call it? Hesitant.
Not as fluent. She's definitely considering the words as they're coming out.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Stephen Hawking was for a while there, when he was getting used to the whole machine with the eye stuff going on there.
Yeah, well, he still talks kind of like his machine voice is a little
sadly
slow.
horrible stories that it's slowing down as the degeneration continues.
But
to be locked inside your own body.
Actually, well, I mean, Stephen Hawking. I mean, yes, it's horrible what happened to him, but also kind of amazing how medicine has been able to.
They said he wouldn't live, past the 10 years through his original diagnosis, and boy, has he proved them wrong.
Yeah.
So yay! But that brings up to another thing potentially that I haven't seen for a brain swapping bit. In that, what if one of the brains you're swapping is for a person who's a brilliant scientist, that's we'll go with the Stephen Hawking thing. We'll say he was in an accident and he's paralyzed and he can't even speak. All he can really do is move his eyes, but his brain's still functioning perfectly. We need your healthy body so that he may live and contribute to the world again. Your biggest contribution is that you spend money every month to keep the economy rolling along. Can you please give up your brain space for him?
Well, how do they pick a person for that?
I don't know who's on a list.
Because I'm on a donor list. I'm on an organ donor list, but
are you on a full
body
list?
Couldn't they just find someone who died in a motorcycle accident?
Well, that's the thing. It'd have to be a pure brain accident in this sort of case.
Oh, okay.
But what would it be is congratulations, I've been watching you for the last month. You are effectively brain dead. You use your brain so little. I'm going to volunteer you to give up your body for this man who's sitting, doing nothing, because that's what you've been doing for most of your last month. Buddy.
Actually, no. There are people who end up brain dead, and usually what ends up happening is the plug gets pulled because the machine is breathing for them, but they're not there. They're never coming back. The brain is dead.
There is no activity. There's nothing going on. Yeah.
However, the body would still be viable. So I would think that if medicine was at that point, you could have a body donation, and that would be I'd be cool with my body if if I was brain dead and I wasn't there.
You mentally flatlined.
Yeah, for whatever reason, either disease or just head injury or something, or
too much Minecraft,
or whatever. Yeah, I think that would be a good use for what remains of my body. Yeah, I'd say.
But you don't see that as a story often enough, or even a plot within. Because that leads itself up to a society whereby the rich can, afford to constantly get themselves new bodies. It's I have this body's been mine for about 3 years. I've heavily abused it. I need a new body now, because horrible lung stuff going on now. Because I've been smoking a chimney stack. Because I can afford a new body every 3 years. I'm rich.
Yeah, well, I guess the scenario you're posing is that the so-called donors are people who are otherwise healthy. They haven't been in any kind of accident or become brain dead. They're just...
Well, this guy's offering so much money for my body, I'd effectively die for it, but the money would go to my wife and kids. My kids could all go to post-secondary education. My wife could be set up for life, and the horrible, poverty-based life that we're living in, we don't have to live anymore. I will give up my body, and my life for, my wife and children.
So they're
buying. That's just one example. I mean, I'm just making this up as though we're like a Hollywood blockbuster style movie right now.
It works as a storyline. I don't sort of as
is
a
it
society.
Is it any crazier than that movie where you would buy and sell time of your life? Well, you've got 10 minutes left of your life. If you can't buy more, you are dead.
I would think sort of in real life, I would want to structure a society so that we didn't have to ask that question. Like I'm saying with just find someone who's brain dead, from an accident or something.
Not enough people are brain dead for these rich people blowing through bodies every 3 years.
Well, a lot of people die. I guess not
enough for this rich elite who are now can live incredibly long lives while abusing their bodies heavily. And what if they're not even this body is dying on me, I got to get a new one. What if it's what's really big for fashion this year? Mexicans. Being in a Mexican body is super fashionable this year, and it's oh my god! And all of a sudden, anybody who's brain dead, in Mexico, all of a sudden, that's a high demand body there, because it's in horribly grotesque fashion for these rich people that are just body swappers.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, again, I wouldn't want to structure a society like that way, but I can
Nobody
see a
wants
story.
to structure society that way, but there are ways where, because there's enough money, for the ultra-rich to do this sort of thing, the one-percenters, that it can become a thing. Where it's like, okay, yeah, now we just have put in this little node at the bottom, and then the brain just plops in, the two nodes connect up from the base of the brain to the top of the spinal cord, bam, you're ready to go.
Again, though, my thought, because this is all science fiction, and this is stuff...
This is deeply science fiction for a number of reasons.
It's
maybe not forever, though.
Also probably the case that once you have enough medical technology to, sort of swap brains in and out, you probably also have the medical technology just to alter an existing body. Like, oh, they're too fat? Well, we got liposuction, we got plastic surgery, we got this and that. We can just completely change your existing body. And I can't even imagine.
Too many nose jobs, the entire face is collapsed, get yourself a new body.
Maybe, yeah, eventually, yeah, if you wear it out by too much plastic surgery, sure. But
okay, so the last 3 surgeries didn't go so well. You look like a mess. Time for a new body.
Yeah, I would think I would rather take those risks of the plastic surgery than I would assume it would be more risky to actually have a brain transplant. I mean, again, we don't know because this is future, like, magical almost technology, but
it's a story you don't see as often as the standard, like person Freaky Friday mind switch going on sort of thing. It's one of the things where you see it's very much more personal as opposed to societal. And I'm wondering if that's the reason why it's still continuing on as a trope, despite the fact that medicine has proven, no, you don't know what you're doing, Mr. Writer. Please, just leave our space alone.
Keep telling the stories, but they're just stories, and they're just what if scenarios.
Yeah, but occasionally someone will try and come up with like a reasoning for it, and it's like, no, your science hurts my head. Knock it off.
Yeah.
Keep the science, a little more soft, and I won't have to think about it so much, and we can go on with the story in that case. Which is one of the few cases where less explanation actually works out better, because it's not possible under current stuff. So the more you try and explain, the more you hurt the people who know what you're talking about. Heads. It's like, ow, no, ow. Now I've got a migraine from your explanation.
Those people need to just lighten up. That's what
it's happened to me from time to time. It's like some of those old bits where you see somebody like, I'm a hacker and I'm hacking the computer, and they're using terminology so wrong, and it's just like, you're just spouting buzzwords. This means absolutely nothing. It's, I'm not a good computer guy, but I know you're speaking non-words. These words are literally nonsense.
I guess,
So in which case, if they were to say, oh yeah, no, I'm hacking the server, okay, I'm in, okay, going in here, I've got the files, I think I can download them in time.
So very simple.
Yeah, keep it more basic. In which case, less explanation winds up being better because there's a lot of real science you'd have to massacre to make it work.
Yeah, so I'm picturing like the reader saying, well, I could have written this better or something like that. But of course that's like, looking at a painting and say, oh, my kid could have done that or something like that. I'm
willing to grant Jackson Pollock the fact that his splotch patterns were in such a way that most people can't imitate them without some decent practice beforehand. That said, I could totally paint that.
And I think that's weird about like this whole like, oh, I could have written that better or it should have been done better, because it's not necessarily the best. Well, how to put this?
Can I put that as a forward in a book if I ever managed to write a book sort of thing? It's like, this is dedicated to all those who believe they could write this story better. Come at me, bro.
Well, it's something like. You think you could write it better, you think you could have done a better job, but that they did the job. It's not about like the best person gets the job. Like that's
first past the line wins.
It's just it's just whoever ended up writing this book or whatever. They happen to choose that career, so they're writing a book. I know we like to think in terms of meritocracy and the best writers of the best get to write the books, but it's also just who chose to go into that field and who they met and stuff like that.
There are some pretty good people I think would write some pretty good stories, and there are some people that should be in other fields. I've been told I should really be working myself and my skills in the sales area. Like I should be able to sell cars and all that sort of thing. I got the personality for that. I'm like, I actually don't want to. My ideal job would be working in a nice laboratory where I don't have to deal with customers.
I wanted to say, speaking of writing, though, it is National Novel Writing.
NaNoWriMo
has begun. I just wanted to mention that because it's.
You should be at 10,000 pages by the time we're speaking.
10,000 words.
If you get 10,000 pages, so much the better. I say aim the bar higher. That way, when you come in lower and you don't get your 10,000 words, you still succeeded.
I wonder. Yeah, I think it's possible to write like 50,000 words in a weekend. So.
That's it. My biggest problem is always, what the heck am I going to wind up writing?
Yeah.
I could start writing tonight. I could go home.
You could listen back to this podcast and pick out any, probably a dozen topics.
But that's the thing is I can come up with a good start to a story. It's like, where does it go from here? And it's like, well, if I start writing it without knowing what the ending's going to wind up being like, either I have to deduce the conclusion, of like how it ends myself, or I'm going to have to, pull something out of my backside and say, hey, it was this all along. Well, you were having, like a brain seizure as you were dying, and that's what the whole experience was.
I suppose with NaNoWriMo, because you're not necessarily doing the whole planning it out and knowing the conclusion in advance, although you can, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. But with Nano, it's sort of that stream of consciousness. So just think of yourself as like watching a movie and like, oh, I see two characters, walking into a room. What do they do? Oh, they leave? Okay, what happens next?
But what if you start putting in stuff you don't even understand? Because it's like,
sure.
I tried that, back, like Halloween, I was a little disappointed at the lack of, good Halloween movies on basic cable. So I got myself a copy of Hellraiser, went to bed a little early, popped that in and watched it. And, then I'm going to bed, I'm thinking of my own things, like, okay, Ryan, tell me a fun story. And apparently Hellraiser is a good enough movie to really get my brain working, because I can still decently remember some of the stuff of the story I was telling myself. But, right now, I still have no idea what was up with the spiders in the dream. There were two spiders. One was kind of like a nice car yellow color with black stripes around it, and on its back, where the venom symbol is on a Black Widow, it's a spider symbol on there. And then there was another one for spider, but it was red instead of yellow, and they were both colored like car paint colors, and they were like almost glossy, shiny like that. What does that mean? I got no clue. What happens if I write a book based on that? And people go, what was up with the spiders? What did they represent? I'm like, I got no clue.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about...
Please, you tell me. What did they mean?
No,
I've been wondering this one since I wrote it.
That's the thing about modern criticism is the author is dead. The author's not literally dead, but that's what they mean when they say the author's dead, is the author doesn't get to tell you what they meant. Like, you just have to, it has to be obvious from what you read in the text. Or you add it yourself. That's a thing readers can do, is they can just come up with their own reason why the spiders are painted like with car paint jobs.
It was a pretty nice, they were decently sized spiders, and it wasn't like too furry for spiders. It was my ideal spider. I can recognize that for its shape. Not too small, not too, it disappears, out of your field of vision for a second. It was big enough that you can see as it moves. Not hairy, glossy sort of exoskeleton. But what was up with the car color? Why was it, orange and red colored like car paint on there?
Because it's awesome.
Well, no, ostensibly, yes, they were pretty awesome spiders, but when they popped up, it's like, I'm going to have to sit down, and I'm going to have to go to like a dream journal website sort of thing and start looking up, what do spiders mean in a dream? What do cars mean in a dream? What does paint mean in a dream? Does any of this connect potentially to anything I dreamt about? Like what's going on here? So I'm a little hesitant to actually tell a story without having an ending, or at least knowing what the symbology is meaning. I dig good symbology. It's in this case, the red spider was red because it was a particularly bloody scene, and this, the red was the blood on the spider. The spider represents the emotions in this case, scuttling around that human beings will never truly be able to stop out, and that's what the spiders really mean. The yellow is when the guy was fleeing, and that clearly indicates the panic. The spiders are his emotions.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you...
Actually, I suppose that's as good an explanation as any, because right now...
Yeah, it's reasonable. But I'll tell you another secret about, this whole NaNoWriMo project, is that in the first draft, those kind of symbols, that's not where they come out. I mean, yes, sometimes they spill out happily by accident. It's like, oh, I accidentally made a connection there. But no, you make the sort of the symbolic, like you connect the dots in your second or third revision, like you add things when you're rewriting, basically.
I like the notability of the spiders. I'm going to put in some blue spiders over here and a green spider up over this spot.
Yeah. You sort of fill in the rainbow and you say, oh, well, is there you write a rough draft first, and then if there's loose threads, so like there's every other color of spider except blue for some reason. Well, no problem. We'll just add in a chapter on blue spiders.
Well, that's the name of my book, No Blue Spiders.
Or that's the name of the book, or you draw attention to it. Yeah,
Blue spider be gone.
Basically, because the reader, like when you're reading, and you're also looking for like, oh, how do I connect all the details? Like, where do the puzzles?
I suppose it comes from the other end. The reader is looking at the story top down. They see the finished product and they try and find the stuff underneath it. The writer is looking at it from the bottom up. They see all the stuff that led to what was writing, and then at the end, they finally, beyond all the symbolism that they've built out and all the themes, in the end, at the very far edge, they see the full story. So they're looking at it from like opposite ends.
Well, possibly, but also at the same time, when you write that first draft, you're also in the position that the initial reader is in that you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, and you don't necessarily have all the pieces
well, some
together.
people don't know. Some people do like have this all formulated out in advance.
Yeah. You can.
They got diagrams on the walls. They got pictures and like bits of string connecting things.
But you're basically reading your own work and you're saying, oh, this is terrible. Like this doesn't fit. This doesn't fit. Well, you have an opportunity.
Everything I write is that. Oh God, that's terrible.
But that's great because you now have this work that you can change and alter and mold and like.
Although there are some things I recall reading up that I did like 10 years ago. Whoa, this is brilliant. Who wrote this? This wasn't me. This wasn't me at all. I'm not this good.
Yeah, was it kind of Lovecraft style like wording like that?
No, but it avoided the purple prose just barely. But it's like, I kind of like those nice bits. There's some very. I like the tones and patterns you're setting here, and the words flow very well. Who wrote this? Because it wasn't me. It wasn't me at all. I don't know this, Ryan.
Yeah, and some of that is just dreaming out loud, or dreaming. Oh, I like that term.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, dreaming while you're daydreaming on paper or whatever.
Also, is it okay if I don't do NaNoWriMo because I have a slight fear that my symbolism will be seen by those who are better than me, and they'll go like, "Oh, I know what this means. You sick freak."
No, that's not okay. There is no excuse for not doing NaNoWriMo.
Unless you are like super busy and like all you have time to do is listen to a podcast as you go about doing your work.
Yeah, but
that's completely acceptable.
You know what? I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna say that person just has different priorities. You always have time to write.
Well, unless you are literally doing like a 16-hour workday, like you're doing like stuff, making sure everything in a hospital is sanitized properly so that nobody dies of illnesses and transfers.
I guess, people in hospitals work pretty long hours. The President of the United States probably doesn't have time to do NaNoWriMo. Although, it's funny, like...
He probably could, but man, the amount of flack he'd get from the opposing party...
Actually, I should mention, speaking of workloads, I guess, is that presidents actually take a lot of vacation time.
They have to. It's a high-stress position. Yeah. They cannot be a frazzled bundle of nerves when it comes time to, like, should we nuke them? Yeah. No, only the western half. That way we won't seem too bad, right? No.
Yeah.
No, you got to be calm. You got to be collected, and even when they are, like in vacation at Camp David and all that,
I guess they're still on call.
They're bringing themselves all together, and at a moment's notice, they're still ready to jump on it.
Yeah, they could get a call any moment that some country or some madman has captured some superheroes and he's threatening to blow up the world if you don't send him $1 billion.
Putin has sent us a large box of vomit. What does this mean? And it's like up to the President of America to decide what the box of Putin vomit means.
Okay, so we got off topic and we've gone a little bit over time.
As per our motive.
Do we have final thoughts on the brain switching?
I think it's forgivable to ignore the limits and the restrictions on science and what you can and cannot do because it does tell such a good personal story. I think there's a lot of work that can be done for putting it on a much less personal basis and a much more societal basis as to what you can do should this become an available technology. Like, okay, 1940, you were able to switch parts of a brain around. Now, in the year 2035, we are, building a better class of person for this role by actually making sure that, okay, this is the person we want for this aspect, and we are cutting and pasting brain parts together in such a way to make the ideal worker class, the ideal, leading class. This is what you want for an ideal scientist sort of thing. We want someone who's very well in technical knowledge, but on this other half, we're going to start, putting some artistic stuff in there so we get some really fancy, good work out of them as both halves are really fired up. But on the other hand, we don't want them to, become mad scientists. So this whole bit about, leadership and initiative, we are just going to, little scar tissue there. Oh, how did that happen? And so that way they work better in a group thing underneath a leader, someone else who's helping them out there.
Okay.
And maybe, that would be a very interesting story to tell. I don't know if I want to do that for my own NaNoWriMo story, but if you're looking for a topic out there, that's an interesting premise to start with, and find a person who, this is the most interesting part in his life because it deals with this topic. How? Run with it.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Take it. I'm not going to put a pin in it. I'm not going to reserve it for myself. That's not the story I want to tell, but I do believe it would be a good story to read and a decent story to write, so there you go. I believe that wraps up everything into at least a decent bundle. How about you?
Sure.
Brain transplants and switching minds and other stuff.
I guess I'm with you. What you said earlier about sort of leaving the details out. I kind of do prefer that whole magical. It's magic, because I think if you start to get into technical details, I feel like there are a lot of other things that have to happen before a brain transplant is scientifically possible, and at that point it probably wouldn't be a practical thing to do.
Unless you really need that brain going.
I suppose if you had a very
What would be
vital...
the kind of brain where you'd have to keep it going? No, we can't put you in this body. You need to upgrade your body. What mind? What person? Is that something just for the president?
No.
Of a country? Is that something for the president of a corporation?
Well, maybe for political and cultural reasons, but I don't think it's a practical, because I think my theory is...
There's another Kennedy down in the wings somewhere.
Well, yeah, my theory is, maybe it's a little bit cold-hearted, but I always think, presidents and leaders and stuff, they're replaceable. And that's why I think...
Intrinsically so. We try and do it every 4 years sometimes.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think it's dumb that people think they can get, assassinate a president, that's going to change anything, because the system is bigger than any one person. And I think it just becomes, in the sci-fi futuristic settings, it just becomes more like that, and that the system takes over.
You've shot the brain out of President Ultron. Well, it doesn't really matter, because there's 5,000 more of them. Yeah. You don't got enough bullets there, Mr. Sniper.
Yeah.
There's one of them permanently situated in every country. If anyone needs to talk to the president of the United States of Ultron, because, he takes it over, right? All they need to do is just go to, the Ultron room and just, ask him. He's there, and he's got other, himself elsewhere. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And, even... I'm trying to think of a case in which it would be actually reasonable to assassinate a leader, and you talk about your dictators, your Hitler, your Kim Jong-un,
Kim Jong-blank for some people, doesn't matter which one in the family it is.
But those people are also sort of surrounded by a cadre of...
I have heard the theory that Kim Jong-un is not the real power in North Korea. He is just a figurehead. It's the military government that's doing it all.
That was recently in the news a little bit. They were saying he hasn't made too many appearances, and there was rumors that he was sick. And
I've been told it was a bit of an ankle surgery sort of thing.
He may have had gout.
On the other hand, he's made less insane declarations than his dad, so it's still a net positive, right?
Yeah, and he's friends with Dennis Rodman.
There's still time for him to go, completely crazy and be worse than any of his ancestors. But for now, he's less insane than the others, and that's a nice thing.
I don't know. But I was going to say...
Who knows, maybe 7, 8 more generations down the line, and they'll have a decent, working, proper government that helps out for the people, and it's a wonderful, benevolent dictatorship.
Sometimes when there is somebody who's a figurehead or a cultural symbol or a political symbol, it's not about their brain, it's about that particular physical human being who has a certain face and stuff like that.
Like Kim Jong-un's, like his grandfather was seen as like a living god, or at least the propaganda had him portrayed such a way.
Yeah, so symbolically...
Switching the brain doesn't help out because the face of...
yeah, exactly. So symbolically, like, taking out that leader might be effective because it's like, oh, our symbol has been removed, so how are we going to deal with that?
Or on the other hand, it could really set you up for a divine thing like, I have been reborn, I am now, Kim Jong Ultimate.
Yeah,
Kim
like
Jong Infinite.
Another guy might...
And it doesn't matter how many times they destroy my body, I shall always rise, for I am the God Emperor of North Korea.
Well, did you ever read the story about, like, there was... what was it, Pseudo-Ramses or something? There was a pharaoh who basically killed the old Ramses, but the pharaoh was sort of... would rule in, like, masks or, like, sort of behind a veil.
They were crazy enough, I can totally believe that.
It might have been... I might be getting this wrong, of course. But,
or, hey, here's an interesting concept. We'll meld the Egyptian mythology stuff with the brain transplant things, because in the Egyptian mythology, the gods were said to have, the gods grow old and die, and then they come back again. How do they keep coming back? Well, it's just a simple body transfer, man. They keep the brain the same. Welcome to, Ra the 17th sort of thing, because they he dies again. Oh, we'll just put the brain in a new body because, we're gods. That's what we can do.
Or I suppose the one other scenario I can think of where you would want to resurrect a specific person would be like the Johnny Mnemonic, where there's like an encryption code in their head or something like that. So there's that.
Or if they know something that, so you got to be alive for a little bit while.
Or they know where the bomb is hidden. Or
where the $500,000 is.
There we go. Back to Black Friday.
So this is as good an explanation as any, I suppose.
Did they get Freaky Friday from Black Friday?
No, Black Friday in this case was a connection to the...
combined people rather than swapped, right?
Freaky Friday was like a lesson learning story between like a mother and daughter.
There's still brain switching, so
it wasn't even a brain switch. It was just like your mind switch. One day you wake up and all of a sudden, you're in the body of your mom, or you're in the body of your daughter.
It was more magic, supernatural.
Almost intrinsically, if I can recall the story right. There's like a magical MacGuffin that does it. You hold on. I wish you understood what my life was like. Well, I wish you understood mine. Oh, it grants a wish.
Yeah.
I think that's how it worked in the original one. It's been a long time since I saw it.
But I find it hard to well, I mean, there are always coincidences, but Black Friday, Freaky Friday, there's really... I guess it could be.
I'd have to double check to find out where they originally got the Freaky Friday one from, but as far as I understand, not much of a connection, just happened to correlate in this case for 2 data set points.
Okay, well...
Wikipedia can prove me wrong.
I should mention our social media.
Yes.
Facebook.com/TheSimulationist. You can also find us YouTube.com/TheSimulationist. And you probably already found us on blogspot.ca/TheSimulationist.
You can tweet at Josh, SpaceBoot1.
Yes. My Twitter handle is at SpaceBoot1. That's SpaceBoot numeral 1.
No spaces.
1. No spaces except the space. The space spelled out, the words.
Yeah.
I'm confusing myself now. Anyways, what else? I think that's about it. If you see a place where you can write a review on whether that be Stitcher or the iTunes Store or any place that you can, YouTube, you can give us the thumbs up. Please, by all means, we really appreciate a little bit of that
share the love, man.
And the thumbs up and the sharings. And tell friends, please. Tell all your friends, tell your enemies, tell your local game shop, and get the word out.
It's like, hey, you guys are talking about this. There was that in a podcast I listened to just last week. The Simulationist. You should check it out. They really mentioned some interesting topics on that one. And also, bam, you shared us. And, I mean, that's as good as giving us money, honestly, man. Giving us shares, I think, is at least as good.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, of course, is write feedback. You can always email us. TheSimulationist@gmail.com is our email address.
If we suck noodles, let us know why. I mean, we're not going to get better without the proper feedback, man. It's your fault as well as ours now. That's right. We split the blame now. If we're not doing good enough, you're not telling us, you're at least as to blame as we are.
Sure.
Put that in your mind.
I think that about covers it for the simulation.
I think so too.
We will be back again next Monday. Well, this goes up early Monday morning, so we'll be back again another Monday morning.
7 days.
This week. If you're listening in the future, obviously you can just click over to the next episode and hear us talk about whatever we happen. We don't have a planned topic, but I'm sure it'll be great, just like it was great this week.
I think it's great every week.
Yes.
Except for that 1 week, but I'm not going to tell you which 1 week that was. I'll let you go back and figure it out for yourself. Make your own decision.
Okay, yeah.
Take care out there.
I've been Josh Treleaven.
I've been Ryan Kirky.
And